Maybe we can put on the lights in the room so I can see people, because then it's a little bit more intimate, or is that possible? Oh, yeah, go. Hi. Great that you guys are here. My name is Menno Deen. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a project we did in Rio. But first, maybe it'd be nice to know a little bit about me. I'm a social impact game designer. I make games that empower, connect, and move people, which means that games like this is a game for research. It's a game in which you play with RNA, and then you help to cure cancer, like really. We made games for sexually abused children to talk about their experiences. We make games to foster drug and medicine compliancy. I make games that make people move. This is a running around game like musical chairs, but then with monsters. We make games in the swimming pool that you can swim and use your body as a controller. We make games to fight loneliness amongst elderly. I organize Courage XL, which is a huge indie showcase in San Francisco. I'm the chairman of Games for Diversity, where we host the annual Candle Pride and do all sorts of game jams related to less represented cultures in games. And I was the incubation manager of Dutch Game Garden. Well, with all those things with me, I was asked to go to Rio de Janeiro and set up a game programming course for teachers to teach children how to make video games.
Eu gostei do curso de Game Design, porque aqui a gente pôde criar nossos jogos personalizados que a gente queria, criou várias histórias, foi muito divertido também estar fazendo parte desse projeto.
You want to make a game, you don't know how, just start. Everything is possible. And we teach them also that they can make mistakes. Mistakes are good. If you don't make mistakes, you haven't tried hard enough.
It shows them that they can get a bright future doing that. So that was fascinating for me to see the kids drawing, and some of them were like, oh, I didn't know I could draw so well. But some of them maybe don't get an iPad at home or never touched an iPad. So I think it's important for them to get this first contact, and then they will be fascinated and try to get more about it online, or in the future, it's a new idea for them to do in the future.
So during this games course, we give them all kinds of tools which they can play, they can experiment. They don't have to worry that they break something, but everything they touch, they can make something beautiful out of it.
Porque foi bem legal, porque a gente fez jogos, a gente desenhou, a gente brincou, aprendeu a falar de outras formas, foi muito legal.
Edumais is organized to teach children to become teachers as well. So part of our program, the game design program we are doing here in Brazil with Edumais, is to teach the teachers how to do this course when we are not around. So yes, to work with Edumais and how they train the children that are connected to them is such a pleasure. and it's really nice to see how they grow in their roles.
Well, if you like repetitive music, I think you're on the right spot with our video. This project all started a year ago when these two people met. This is the president of Edelmais. They organize summer schools. And this is my friend Juriaan van Rijswijk, who works at Games for Health in the Netherlands. Games for Health has the mission statement to make 1 billion people happy in the next 2 years. And this project sort of fitted right into it. What better way to make people happy than have them make games for themselves? We did it in this region. This is one of the favelas in Rio de Janeiro. And I was never there. I've never been to a favela before. I had no idea what to expect. I learned that we were really poor and that it was really scary and that you should not be safe there. Gladly, we were invited by Isabelle. She was one of the student teachers. And she showed us around and gave us a tour through her neighborhood. As you can see, the buildings are basically built upon each other. Everybody can just build their own house, but there's a strict social regime. People really care and look after each other. Everybody has an actual house. It's small, but cozy, but also really unsafe in terms of construction. So there's a lot of problems when buildings collapse during rainfall and earthquakes. Every house has access to water, electricity, and Wi-Fi, though it's a bit sketchy. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And when you walk there, and you feel like this is a great home to live in. But then you also hear the stories about weekly shootings, about a lot of drug traffic, and a lot of fear that people live with. One of the student teachers told us that. He said, like, I'm happy I live in a stone house, so when there's a shooting, I just wake up, turn around and fall asleep. But my friend, he lives in a wooden house, so every time he hears a shooting, he has to crawl under his bed and wait until it's over, because otherwise he might be killed by a stray bullet. That doesn't really make for a safe environment, and in this environment, people live and grow. The program was made to educate children during the summer camp, or during the summer period, and to get them out of the house and into the school. So the more they are at school, the less they have time to get lost in other things, right? And they actually have to learn something. And they learned a lot in these 4 weeks. They learned how to design levels, and we use Pac-Man as a starting point and asked them to change the mazes and come up with all kinds of maze games. They learned to iterate on their design process by using paper prototypes. They also learned how to code or to script in Game Maker. They learned to connect to each other through play, which in my opinion was one of the most important things. But anyway, they already knew each other, but I had a lot of fun too. They met a lot of Brazilian game professionals. I reached out to my network and I asked them to call in and tell the children what they did all day long, what their daily lives were like. As such, the children learned a lot about being a professional game professional, basically. So we had people from academics, we had people from design, we had people from development, from production, from management, from marketing. Basically, everybody had a short moment to talk to one of the professionals from the game industry and get a glimpse of what it would be like to work there. We taught them how to make art, how to make art specifically for game designs, how to think about proportions, to play with proportions, and also to digitalize the art and get it into the game, to work on assets and to develop those kinds of things and work with restrictions of resolutions or whatever your character could do. They also learned how to present their work. First, obviously, they just talked about it, but then they had to make movies from it because at a certain point, there was a huge COVID outbreak and we lost half of the children because they all got COVID and they were not allowed to get into school again. So we divided the groups up in 3 and they were not allowed to interact with one another, which basically didn't really work because when they left school, they were together again. But hey, we tried our best. And they had to, but it also gave a new opportunity to have them teach how to communicate their level design process or their level design decisions to each other. Eventually, we became a really good team that could work together and beat the deadline. After 4 weeks, we finished the course, and we lost half of them due to COVID, but all of the students that enrolled had so much fun, and even the president of the school came to us and said, like, wow, I didn't expect this to happen, right? You were able to encourage and to engage these children in this really, really hot month in Rio, and they actually learned a lot. They also learned a new gesture. This meant that everybody had to be quiet. We discovered some spectacular sights. Obviously, when you're in Rio, you're not staying in the city. And we brought stroopwafels to them. One of the most important things was to teach the teachers to teach. That was the main premise of the course. And we did it by teaching by example. And as such, Isabelle, Enrique, and Wesley learned a lot. And we were supposed to call them in, so I could ask them what they learned. Unfortunately, we couldn't have them here. So they recorded their answer or my question on their phone, and they sent it to me.
For me, the big challenge was being the design teacher in the last week and above answer a question about what.
So the first question was, what was the biggest challenge for you?
For me, the big challenge was being the design teacher in the last week and above answer a question about what I can't explain and passing on to the student. And it was hard to explain what kind of game we are making. And I asked for help to answer this question real.
So Isabelle had a hard time teaching because she didn't know anything about game design. She thought, like, who am I to teach these children about game design, game development, and all those kinds of stuff? And she was really relying on really traditional means of education. That's what she was used to. You go stand in front of an audience like this, and then you just push your knowledge there, and then you hope it gets there and someone reminds, right? To me, this is not how education works. I've been teaching for 10 years, and we've done a lot of different projects, and we're more into project-related learning. I'll come back to that later. She wants to be a translator later, and she used her English knowledge to translate everything we said to the students, and as such, she learned that you don't have to talk that much as a teacher.
So the biggest challenge I faced during the summer camp was the uncertain about the next day, because with the COVID, I was not sure how the next day was supposed to be, because the kids could get like COVID or the teachers. So every day was something new, a new experience, a new way to go. So every day we had to do everything different. So for me, that was the biggest challenge, because I was used with doing the same thing every day, so we had a routine, and every day we did the same thing. But this time was a little bit different. I had to overcome it.
Like Isabelle, Enrique, who's the vice president of Edelmais, 21 years old, and student in engineering, was relying on really traditional ways of education. He had the didactic approach of writing a full planned program and then just run it day after day after day. I hope we taught him something different. For Isabelle, she's going to tell you now how she did overcome this challenge.
I overcame it by asking for help when I had difficulties and calmly exposing everything. Teaching is not about transfer, it's about knowledge constructed.
So Isabelle learned that teaching is not so much about transferring knowledge, it's about creating knowledge together. If you don't know something, you can look it up, especially now with the internet everywhere and with the knowledge out there. You basically can ask for help on the internet, but you can also ask for help to people you know. She thought that as a teacher, you should be the knowledge center of the classroom. But instead, she became the medium who brought the students to the right people to help them out and become more educated. She found out that you can be a good teacher without having all the knowledge.
And the solution I found to overcome this challenge was to be more flexible, basically. I was not flexible. I didn't used to be flexible with time and things to do. But this year was necessary for me and the team to be flexible. So that's the way we and I overcame this challenge. So every day before starting the day in the morning, me and the teachers, we were having like this briefing and sharing ideas and things that we can do better, and I was listening to them and they were sharing their ideas. So I think that was very important for me to see from their perspective, and also to improve as well, like the way the summer camp was going.
So Enrique, as I said before, he was working with a really traditional didactic. He came up with a really strict planning, had planned everything in advance, had written everything out, and the moment the course started, he could throw all his work out of the window. It was all done for nothing. He learned that if you teach, you have to change your teaching in accordance to the progress of the students. So some students were progressing really fast. We had a workshop on Pac-Man, and they completed it in 1 day instead of 1 week, which meant that we had to bring in more content, have to teach them more, come up with new challenges, and give them more to work with. At the same time, we had students doing design work, and they got stuck. And it took forever for me to help them to explain that they can make mistakes, that making a mistake is an integral part of the design process. Obviously, if you do a project like this, you'd like to make an impact. As I said, I'm a social impact game designer, so I always hope that the work I do somehow resonates with something. But you're never sure. Gladly, Isabelle and Enrique thought it did make an impact and it did change someone's life, so let's hear from them.
What they learn, they will take with them for all their lives, and I saw many students interested.
Sorry, this is my reminder that I'm that I should be here. Wait.
What they learn, they will take with them for all their lives, and I saw many students interested in different workshops and had a lot of different experience.
So Isabelle said, like, everything they learned, they could use in another domain. Obviously, not all the children will end up in the game industry. I hope not, though. But they learned how to program, they learned how to design, they learned how to make digital art. We had a student who was amazingly gifted in drawing. He could become a concept designer and concept artist in basically any field. He was so good, and he was so thrilled with working on the iPad. At a certain point, everybody was playing soccer, and he was there drawing still on his iPad. A full week, right? Every day he was working on it. And I sat next to him and said, like, don't you want to play soccer? He said, oh yeah, I don't know, like, I don't really like soccer. I just like to draw. Is that wrong? I said, oh no, it's amazing. So he discovered that he had a huge talent, and he also discovered that he can do that on his phone.
Now, talking about the impact, what I could see from the kids is most of them didn't know that behind a game, there's all the process of creating and briefing the ideas, like have this brainstorm, and there's someone who is writing the story, someone who's drawing. So the kids didn't know it, you know. So now all of them, they know what's behind the game. So it's not only like coding, it's not only drawing, it's not only writing a story, it's all of this together. And also I feel like the kids now, they know that they can make like this a career, so they can work with games, you know, not only playing games but also working and developing, publishing their own games. So that's the big impact on the kids. And in me, the impact on myself, as I said, I could develop lots of skills, and the main one is being more responsible and flexible with time and people.
Yeah, so basically what it comes down to is that thanks to this program, they gained a load of insights in the world of the game industry, but also in themselves. They can do stuff they didn't know they could do before. Isabelle discovered that she's a great teacher. She can connect really well with students. She can connect really well with professionals. She can bring them together. Enrique discovered that he's an amazing manager that shouldn't be hindered by strict schedules, but who's able to be flexible and change in accordance to the wishes and the needs of their group. That's it. Thank you.